record on this, but if you can't find time, the goal, the purpose of Ignite is to bring you up to a level of doing 16 transactions a year. Right? And I meet a lot of people who say, well, there's no way you can do it. And we have several agents that are closing one a week. And so it's hard to explain to them that you really can't do this. And the market has not been good. Right? I'm talking about in a bad market. And the goal is to get sellers, right, is what would be, and in some ways they're easier to contact using this sort of a system. I was at Bold. Good morning. How you doing? The Bold training, and one of the top agents in the Northern California region, who was doing close to $1 million a year in commissions, was talking to. He knocked on 2,000 doors a month, right? So the idea is that there was 100. He was doing, was it 2,000? So he was doing close to 100 contacts a day, right? Let's say even if you were to do the Bold, what I've suggested is that if you have mediocre goals, right? If you want people to say if mediocrity was his goal, he reached it, right? If you have mediocre goals, you want to develop a habit of at least talking to 5 people a day and adding them to your database. The Ignite goal is 10 people a day, right? That you you connect with, add to your database, and that you send 10 handwritten notes. The goal for Bold is 20 a day. And if you do 20 a day times 5 days, how much is that? What?
20 to 100.
That's 100. And if you do that, so that's 100 a week. And if you do that that's 100 a week. And if you did that for 4 weeks, you'd be up to 400 a month, and times 12 months, 4,800. And assuming that those people sell once every 10 years, that's 480 sales. And assuming you're not good at this and get 10%, that's 48 transactions, where about several of our agents are at. Right? And so doing it, if you want to be the #1 agent in the northern region of Keller Williams and to gross close to $1 million in commissions, you talk to 100 people a day. Right? So where I'm going with this is that you have to set your own goals, right? Depending on, and sometimes what I've learned from having done this before is that a lot of times new people and even used people, but anyhow, even used agents can't see doing that well or making that kind of money. They just can't see it. Right, but if you were to develop a habit of doing the daily 10-4, right? If you were to connect with 10 people a day and put 10 people in your database and launch one of our campaigns, what will happen is you'll start closing transactions. And then when you start closing transactions, it becomes more motivating to make more calls. And pretty soon, what I hear from people is we get into the habit of lead generation such that not doing it becomes uncomfortable, right? The E to P, which we talk about, I'm sure you all remember this, right? E to P. The E stands for entrepreneurial, and the P stands for purposeful. And so what happens is that people go up at different levels, but there's like a ceiling. And what we mean by entrepreneurial is what you can do with what you're comfortable with already, right? That's your entrepreneurial. And some people will get to a certain level just from what they're comfortable doing. But in order to get beyond that, you have to do things that you're not comfortable doing. Purpose-driven activities. And then what happens is that the ceiling goes up. All right? And then once the ceiling goes up, then you have to do more things that you're not comfortable doing, and then the ceiling goes up and the ceiling goes up. If you're not uncomfortable at this, you're not doing it right. You understand? If you're not uncomfortable, you're not doing it right. How many of you feel like you're doing it right then? I'm not comfortable. All right. So, I know we mention this every time. You need to start developing a habit of doing this. Time block certain times, and those times you don't reschedule. All right. We put signs on the door that says, "Don't bother me. I'm lead generation." One agent has one that says, "Don't bother me. I'm lead generating. Why aren't you?" That's what it says on his door. Right? Why aren't you? Right? And so we don't schedule inspections and reports during that time. We don't meet with clients at that time. We don't do the sign-offs at that time. That's when we lead generate. Right? And if you like to goof off. If you devote 3 hours a day to doing this, then you can do what you want to in the afternoon, right? But what will happen is if you spend 3 hours a day lead generating, you'll be busy in the afternoon, right? So time block every morning, right? When you were done with Ignite to do this, right? We're going to be doing a seller mastery course I'll be teaching a little bit later. And there's also what's called 36-12-3, which is 36 transactions in 12 months with 3 hours a day. Right? But first we have to get up to 10 a day. That's all we ask is 10 a day. All right. The daily 10-4, we're not doing the power hour because I can't find it. We're going to talk about practicing scripts. Today we're talking about pricing right and presenting a CMA. And what I want to do, just to review this, because it always inspires me, Mr. Barry, guy is in the room next door, and he's in the Bold training program too, and I hear him not practicing doing the scripts, but we're talking about seller leads. And by the way, this is a thing that you need to integrate into your prospecting program. And what were the different ways we talked about seller leads?
FSBOs, expireds.
For sale by owners. Expireds. And we don't have a lot expiring now, but there's a large number of people that had expired that have not relisted their homes, right? People that expired last year and the year before and the year before.
I am relisting MLS number because my website is not done yet, but anyway, I just read everything, how much they put in the market, and then they withdraw 2011. So I have name everything. So once I know CMA today, I'm ready to call those people.
Right.
Because I should offer why you have to use me. You didn't sell.
Right. The thing though is to make the call, we don't want to try and list the home. Right? You're saying you can't list the home over the phone. The reason to call is to get an appointment.
All right, so I don't have to worry about.
Don't worry about that, right? The scripts that we have in the expired listing one, just use those when you get an appointment. Then you do all that work.
So if they ask on the phone, let me just meet you first, then I can.
Right. You have to see the house in order to give them a good estimate of the value.
I know the house.
Right. Well, I know that, but what I'm saying is don't spend your time researching every one of the old expireds. Just call them, get appointments, and then do the research. Right? Otherwise you won't do 10 a day. Right. Right. You won't do 10 a day. So we're going to call. What's another way?
Cancel.
What?
Cancel.
Nah.
Farming.
Farming. And at noon today we have every Friday at noon over at the Campbell office we have a farming workshop, right? Right. And it still works, doesn't it? Have you been farming?
I'm surprised that I heard when Mike Sibelius said, where'd you get a listing? Door knocking.
Right.
It surprised the hell out of me that a broker of record with his years of experience is still out door knocking.
Right. One of the things we give out awards sometimes at the team meeting in the Campbell office. It's like a surprise. How many people who talked to the most for sale by owners last week, right? Who talked to the most expireds? And Quincy, who doesn't always come to the meeting, was in the meeting, and it was expireds. He said how? And one person said 2, one person said 4. He said 44, right? Now, first of all, he knew how many he had talked to last week. And he's the number 2 agent in the office, doing close to 500,000 in commissions, and he calls for sale by owners and expireds every week. And he leaves, I think, to play golf, but maybe to door knock, right? You know. So one of the things that people find when they interview the most successful agents is that what they do is sort of boring, right? If I got a group of experienced real estate agents together for a seminar, what they want it to be is an idea fest, right? They want to hear about some technology that predicts who's going to sell their home, some presentation that convinces people to list with them, right? You understand? They all want ideas, but the people that are making the most money are doing the same old things. They just do it a lot more often, right? Door knocking. Does it cost money to do that? No. Does it cost money to call expireds? No. Does it cost money to call for sale by owners? No. What's another way? Sphere of influence, center of influence. Everybody you know and everybody you meet. And what was the other one we talked about? Allied businesses. Right. There's a script that I'll provide you, although it's not a complicated one. You call air conditioning companies up, right? You say, "Hi, I'm with Keller Williams. I have there's one in Ignite similar to that too.
I think the
first script, and I have clients that oftentimes are interested in your services. I thought maybe we could work. Are you taking clients still? Are you taking new clients? Are you accepting new customers? Right? Would it be okay for me to drop by, find out some information about your service? So if you refer them, I got quite a lot of business over the years by talking to contractors that did remodeling, right? Because people were having it remodeled. All right, so you need to have listings, right, in order to last. So we talked about that yesterday. Was it yesterday? It seems like yes, long time ago. We talked about working on your pre-listing package and your listing presentation, right? And does anybody have any questions about that? Because the reason why I used to use a binder with all the different tabs and things like that, as I mentioned, when somebody lists their home, what they're getting is an intangible, which is your promise to provide a service in the future. The more tangible representations you have, the more successful you're going to be. One of the things that I didn't cover was, if I were you, I would create some sample flyers and also a sample single property website. Now, I realize that some of you don't have listings. There's nothing wrong with you taking an office listing and making a flyer, putting your name on it, right? Or creating a single property website. Because what you want to do is you want to show the seller your stuff, right? Do you understand? You want to show them examples, right? And I'll help you. Those, especially those. Everybody in this room, I'm pretty much coaching, I think. So I'll show you how to do that. All right. Any questions about that, right? We want to be, as Machiavelli said, in time of peace, prepare for war, right? When you get the call from doing the things to generate seller leads, you want to have all your stuff ready, right?
Oh yes, I looked at what you told me yesterday, and they have a logo already, Keller Williams, but you said you bought the Keller Williams stationery, right? Then print everything.
Well, you can. I didn't do that. I didn't say that. But you can buy Keller Williams stationery. I just print things out on the printer with the Keller Williams logo.
Okay, so that's
Right.
good enough.
Right.
Is it better to go to Office Max and let them do by laser printer?
No,
Okay,
not for that. If you want it to look like it's on specialty paper, you could go to Office Depot, Office Max, or Staple and buy special paper. You'll see agents that do it, and then on the color printer or the other printers, you can put it in the manual feed and print. All right, let's start on page. We're getting into get your head in the game, which is 15.4. Notice in the first power session, Rev Up, we learned the dominant role your mindset plays in success in real estate sales. One of the problems that I know that people have working with sellers is they don't think they're good enough. Right? I haven't sold. Because you start to think, well, what if? In bold, they talk about what they call the drunk monkey, right? That sits on your shoulder and says, they're going to ask you how many homes have you sold in the neighborhood, right? Right? They're going to ask you how long you've been in the real estate business, right? They're going to want to list with the agent who has the most signs. And if you listen to that, remember that depending on which year, between 68 and 73% of all sellers interview one agent. Right? The idea that sometimes they have 6, 7, or 8. I've been on listing appointments where they were interviewing 8 people. Right? But usually the first one that connects with them when the time is right. You understand? The first one that connects when the time is right. By the way, all of this is to connect with people to get immediate business now when the time is right, but the fortune is in following up. That's why we have the 33 touch campaign, right? The 8x8, 8 contacts in 8 weeks, and then 33 contacts in a year. So you have to believe. That's why we have affirmations, right? You have to believe that you can do it. If you don't believe you can do it, it's hard to convince them to do it. The first part of the job is pricing, is to get into the heads of buyers and sellers so you understand and empathize, go whiff, with their thinking. And the idea here, the win-win, is that right now, if you learn how to do this right, the win for you is that you'll get paid more often because the homes you list will sell, and the win for your sellers is that they'll get the money they want because the property is going to sell. I realize that right now we're in a market where prices are rising, however, there are still expired listings. And the market will change again. Tony DiCello, director of KW Maps, describes pricing tug-of-war and its psychological components. Sellers and buyers typically are out of sync with the realities in the market. In a seller's market, sellers tend to dwell on the future, and buyers in the past, lower prices. The seller who always says, well, the market is rising, so it's right here now, so why don't we list above the market and then we'll wait for it to catch up. Right? One of the things that I would always bring with me on a listing presentation is I would print out all of the properties in San Jose, let's say that's where it was, that expired in the last 60 days. Right? By the way, in all of San Jose, it's actually quite a list that expired or canceled or withdrawn. And when people would say, well, why don't we start above the market and we'll wait for the market to catch up with us, I would say, I understand how you feel. A lot of people feel that way. In fact, I have a list of them, of people that think like that. We call them expired listings. To add to this, sellers want to push prices up and buyers want to hold the line. In a buyer's market, buyers want to place themselves in the future, lower prices, and sellers want to dwell in the past, higher prices. That's why motivation is important. Because if now, there's different ways of looking at this. I had a listing in Sunnyvale that sold in a year and a half. Right? That's how long it was on the market. I told them I was going to leave it in my will, the commission, right? That my grandchildren might inherit the commission. Every agent in our office up there practically did an open house. I happened to know the owners really well, and they weren't going to list with somebody else, and they started $80,000 over price, but they were willing to give me the listing until it sold, right? And guess what happened? Eventually, the market went up, and they went down, and it sold, right? If you understand it, so if motivation, I knew, because I had listed their mother's house and sister's house and sold the brother a house, and I knew they were not going to dump me. But do you understand if they gave you enough time, if they signed a 6-month listing agreement or a 1-year listing agreement, then they can play around some. But we'll talk more about that. All right. Buyers want to put prices, and it says, oh, we already did that. So where we are right now, we're talking about appointments. We went through the sequence with buyers. We're talking about seller appointments. What we're going to do today, 5 easy steps, set the fundamentals about how the market works. Discover top pricing strategies. I like that phrase. I'm going to talk more about that. What I always used to say, and what you should talk about, is pricing is not a fixed thing, but it's a strategy. Does Walmart change their prices? Everybody changes their prices. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down. Why do they change their prices? Do they change the price because their cost to purchase the items has changed? Is that why they change the price? Or is it because they just want to sell it? They just want to sell it. So pricing is not a fixed thing, it's a strategy. Right? Can people price high if they have time? Right? Should people price low if they don't have time? But if you get into an argument about whether or not there is a price, that's a problem. A CMA, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Learn scripts. Everybody likes that part. Discover standards and techniques that will help you deliver a great presentation of your CMA and your price recommendations. Here are some items that you're going to need. E-Edge listing consultation pages. So, let's see. We go to our website, right? We go to E-Edge. Actually, the way my recommendation for getting to your site is that if you start at the front of your login. Come on. All right. Cool.
Since that's where most of us start.
Right. Well, it's not where I was, but.
I know.
But by the way, does everybody realize that next Monday there's another webinar on the KW technology? All right. Just saying. So the best way to do is you can go to My Marketing. You could go to Marketing and Market My Business. And any of those will take you to the right spot. And so there's, let me go here to Marketing. Market My Listings. How about that? I didn't want to do too much of this right now. But by the way, here are some flyers. Market your listings online. You're going to want to click on that if you haven't. Where am I? They've added some things to my login. So this is the section on marketing to sellers, which you're going to want to go through. And you're going to see that in E-Edge, and this particular one I may not be able to get there because this is I have a leadership account now. Is that oh well, I'm not going to do this now. There's a E-Edge listing consultation pages. All right, we're going to look at some of those today. We're going to go through a CMA quickly today, but one of the things that we're going to work on is what I would like you to do is to pick out some properties to do a CMA to practice on. Did anybody bring one that you wanted to do? Well, did I mention that yesterday?
Home address.
Your home address? I'll do it. So, affirmation of the day: I have a successful business that improves everyone's lives, including mine. Let's all say that. I have a successful business that improves everyone's lives, including mine. All right. Well done. I'm proud of you guys. Truth. Pricing is a competitive skill. Comparative market analysis. One of the reasons why we farm. All right, let me just talk about that. Besides that, door knocking doesn't cost very much money. It doesn't cost a lot of money to hand out flyers. It costs more money to mail them out, but not so much to hand them out. Is that you can preview properties in your farm. You can't preview everything everywhere. And the part about pricing, the value that a real estate agent can bring to pricing is that they've seen the comparables. Now, what you can do if you have time is if somebody says, tonight I want to list, I'm thinking about selling my home, come over and talk to me. You could drive around and see all of the listings that are currently on the market, but you can't see the ones that have sold. Admittedly, I did one time. I don't know why. I went and knocked on somebody's door. It had just closed, and I said, look, I have a property that's coming on the market that's just like yours, and I didn't have a chance to see. Can I look around? All right, but you understand, they actually let me in to take a peek at their house because I think they're just proud to have it. But you understand, you can't see the ones that have already closed. So when you're farming, what you want to do, as soon as a property comes on the market, you want to set up an email alert so that you get it and you go look at that property immediately, because sometimes it goes off the market. and your ability to discuss the canceled, withdrawns, and expireds, as well as to talk about what did they mean when they said they had a remodeled kitchen in that one that closed. Sometimes it means they replaced the faucet, right? They say it's a remodel, right? Sometimes it means they remodeled the kitchen. If you haven't seen it, it's really hard to talk about it. You understand? It's really hard to fake market knowledge. Particularly if the owner's been going to open houses for the last 6 months, they have seen the homes that are on your CMA and you have not. Do you understand what a disadvantage you're at? They know more than you do. Yet you're there trying to be the expert to explain to them, right? You can't do that necessarily with for sales by and owners because they're all over the place, right? You have to do the best you can, but the value that you can have if you're a farming agent is that you really do know the inventory, right? I'm just saying. All right. Comparative market analysis, grasping pricing, art and science, grasping the mindset of buyers and sellers. As Shift points out, how many of you have that book? It was written by Gary Keller, right? It's another one of the best-selling books in the series. It's like the game Price is Right. I like that. Sellers want to go as high as they think they can without losing his sales. Buyers want to go as low. What they hope for, what they have is hope, but not a strategy. The good news is that pricing is a process. Learning to do it well also requires knowing pricing strategies. It requires knowing pricing tactics, comparative market analysis, building and presenting, and the scripts that go with it. Now, my advice on this varies with the market. In our current market, and if it were in your farm, my goal would be to get the listing at any price. Right? I'm just saying. Right? Because I believe that having an overpriced listing right now is better than not having a listing, just because of the nature of the market we're in. So I took the view that I never wanted to tell them what the price was. Right? I'm sharing my personal preference for this kind of a market. So when they called me on the phone, I would ask them what they thought their home was likely to sell for. I would say, have you been paying attention to what's been happening in your neighborhood? All right, you've been getting cards from agents, you've been watching what's happening. Do you have an idea what your home is likely to sell for? Then they would say, no, we're not going to tell you. That's not how it works. You have to tell us. That's why we're calling you. You know, we want you to tell us, right? And so then when I would show up on the listing appointment, one of my first questions was, do you have an idea of what your home is likely to sell for? Right? And they'd say, no, we want you to tell us. We're not going to tell you. And then remember, I would say, well, is there a certain, I would ask them how much, I find out how much do they owe. And therefore, I would know how much it would have to sell for it not to be a short sale or something like that. But finally, when it came down to the CMA, what I would do, and when we look at the CMA, what you don't want to do is sometimes it will auto-compute a price based upon the comps that you have selected. It'll automatically come up with a price. That's dangerous, especially if you've never seen the house before. So what I would do is I would identify and I would break up the CMA to what I thought I would bring in properties, individual properties that I thought were accurate comparables, and as I was talking about it, I would push the pages out in front of them of the ones that have sold or were pending that look a lot like theirs, and I would ask them which of these properties do they think is most nearly similar to theirs, and then they would pick one, right? And that one had a price attached to it. And did you understand? It's sort of a game. I learned that if I said the price first, it was oftentimes went bad, right? Because that's not what they were thinking of.
So you're not going to show them what the CMA has actually calculated.
No, I don't do that. I show them
individual.
I show them what's active, what's pending, and what's closed. And by the way, in this market, what's pending is maybe more of an indicator of price than what's closed, right? Do you know what the percentage of list to sales price ratio is in that neighborhood? Can you find out in that area what percentage of the list price people are usually getting? The MLS will, remember, we went through the statistics, we'll do that. So we have an idea, right? However, so did you understand that's, if you say 545, first of all, how do you know? Right? How do you know? These homes don't look like each other anymore. Right? You understand? 60 years ago, the William Lyons all looked the same. They don't look the same anymore. They've all been modified. To become a pricing expert, you need to know how markets work, local market conditions, and pricing criteria. What you want to do is you need to know all those statistics about what's going on in that area. Are the prices going up or are they going down? Are interest rates going up or going down? A little up, but still down. Market dynamics, supply and demand. When supply is high, demand is low, prices fall. Supply is low, demand is high, prices increase. Buyer's market and the seller's market are defined here. What I always say, you know what, by the way, and I would use this line for, depending on which market we were in, to prospect. I would tell people that were thinking that we're renting. I would say, you know, it's a buyer. Do you know what it means that to have a buyer's market? Do you know what that really means?
Buyer's
Oh,
market.
no, houses
There's a lot of sellers.
cheap, right.
What it means, if we're in a buyer's market, is that people aren't buying. Right? That's what it means.
Right.
In a buyer's market, people generally are not buying. That's why it's a buyer's market. Right? What does it mean when we have a seller's market? It means that generally people aren't selling. That's why it's a seller's market. Right? Because, well, isn't that what it means? Right? Right? A seller's market means we have fewer sellers than we have buyers, and a buyer's market means we have fewer buyers than we. Did I say that wrong? We have fewer buyers than we have sellers. You're confusing me. Right? So, do you understand now? Do you have an argument to talk to people? Because people are still sitting on the fence about selling. Right? That's why it's a seller's market. What I've seen in the past when this has happened is that as the prices start to nudge up, more sellers, what usually happens is that it's hard for appraisals at first because the comparables do not support higher prices. So what happens are all cash buyers come into the market and they buy property and it closes and those set comps. And then the appraisers the next time around use the cash sale comps to justify the price for the loan. Then the prices jump a little bit more, right? And they keep doing that until the cash buyers drop out, right? And then it slows down a little bit. But if the prices keep rising, more people will put their homes on the market, right? Now is the time to talk to them, right? Now is the time to talk to them. November and December and January and February is the time to talk with them. If you run the MLS and you look at sales and prices, you're going to see in March, April, and May, it all starts to go up. Now is the time to talk to them, right? So, local market conditions, you need to become a student of inventory, days on market, price per square foot, and changes in the engineers love price per square foot. They love that. They always are calculating it. I've explained to some that if they only look at that, they end up buying a house near the railroad tracks, right? Because it has the lowest price per square foot, right? And they're like, why? Oh, look at that! What a deal, right? You know, and then the house shakes every time the train goes by, right? That's why it's low per square foot. Does the MLS statistics calculate that for you? Right. What is it that people are most likely to ask you when they discover you're a real estate agent? Yeah, how's the market? And I can see Ross has his name badge. I'm not wearing mine today, so I'm guilty. Yeah, it's okay. You can. It's all right. So, but if you wear Keller Williams logo, if you wear a name badge, people will say, "How's the real estate business? How's the real estate market?" That's what?
To me.
No one has?
No, nobody said that. Nobody asked me.
Well, they will.
I had one guy yesterday say, "Look at the round table."
Round table. Well,
No, put your glasses on.
I had somebody ask me if I sold
Real
paint.
estate agent too, by the way.
If I sold paint.
Sherwin-Williams.
Sherwin, yes. All right.
Yeah.
Right, but now you can explain to them. So, would it be good for you to have, like, the old line that comes from Tommy Hopkins is to say unbelievable, and then you say it's a crazy, it's a good market if you're thinking of selling your home. Do you have a home that you're thinking of selling? Right? I ask people, do you rent or do you own? Right? Is this a good time to buy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, before the prices go up.
Before the prices, are interest rates low?
Yes.
Could they go down?
Hard to say that.
Could they? Yeah. Could they go up?
Yes.
Could
Right. Historically, what's more likely to happen?
go up.
They'll go up. Right. So prices could go down of homes, couldn't they?
Could.
They could.
Could.
They could go up.
More likely right now.
Go up.
They could go up. Right. So it's always a good time. It's always a good time. All right. Let's say pricing criteria, location, size, amenities, and condition. We're not going to do the MLS. I'm going to be doing a class on using the Realtor Property Resource. But when you preview properties, we talk about previewing at least 10 homes a week. If you farm, you want to preview everything that's in your farm area. And for practice, what I would do is Sharmila's putting her name badge on, good. That's right. What I would do is I would take some of those and run CMAs on them. Right? You need to be good at this and to do it. What I'm hoping for with all of you, right, is that you set high goals. Right? When in the BOLD program, they tell us to write down the number. How much money do you want to make next year? Now, it's true that most of the people in BOLD have been in business before and haven't. And once you write down the number, they tell you to double it. Right? And so, what I would like you to think about is how much money do you want to make realistically, and then to double it. There's something called your financial thermostat. T. Harv Eker talks about this. If you Google search, you'll find. And what we being people that are in the coaching, teaching, managing, leading section would do is we would say to somebody, well, how much money do you want to make next year? Does anybody want to play this game with me?
Sure.
How much money do you want to make?
$50,000.
$50,000. Okay. What if you only made 40?
I wouldn't feel that great.
Wouldn't feel that great. Okay. So 50,000. If you made less than 50, you'd feel a failure. All right. Anybody else? I mean, 100,000. Okay. If you made 90, would that be okay? Would you shoot? You wouldn't shoot yourself, would you?
No, room for improvement.
Room for improvement, but you'd live with that.
Yeah.
How about 80?
More room for improvement.
More room for improvement, right? But you'd live with that,
Yeah.
right? Would you consider yourself a failure and drop out of real estate?
No.
No. Okay. How about 70?
Then you start to think about it.
Then you start to think about it,
Yeah.
right? So, but you understand? So, 70 is really his number, right? Does everybody see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? 70 is really the number, right? At what point would you decide that you failed and you want to drop out of the business? That's really your number. And one of the things that they found from people that win the lottery is that almost all of them are bankrupt within a few years. There was that show, what was his name, Ty something or other, they would go around and take people that didn't have any money and they had a lousy house and they would make them a new house, right? I've heard they're canceling that show, and do you know why? Because virtually everybody's house is in foreclosure, right? Because what they did is they took poor people that had poor minds, and gave them new houses.
Or money management.
Right. But they also didn't see themselves as deserving to be in a house that looked like that.
Yeah.
Right? Do you understand? Because just like with sellers, it's the motivation of the seller that will get them to price their house right. For you guys, it's your motivation that's going to get you to call 10 people a day. Right? Do you understand? And if you reach what happens, that's that E to P thing, is that you want to try to raise your thermometer. Right? You want to raise your thermometer. Does that, I know from having trained people for a really long time that it is not the mechanics that are generally the problem. It's that people aren't motivated enough to do it. And usually it's because they don't realize that they in fact could do it. Right? That's why I said I'll take 5 a day until you get your first check. Right?
That's the thing. You need to get some wins. Like you say, you know, wait till you get your first check, but there's got to be some wins along the way to the first check. You know, there's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wins along the way come. Real estate sales is not something that just happens. It's based upon what you do. Right? And what most agents do not do is they do not treat it like a job. Right? The Keller Williams model is that you treat it like a job and you pay yourself a salary. And by treating it like a job, it means that if you don't do your job, you get fired. And your job is in the morning from 9 to 11, that's only 2 hours. 9 to 12, if you're serious, you spend that time lead generating every day, 5 days a week. Right? 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, you spend that time and you talk to 10 people, you connect with 10 people, you put them in your database, you launch one of the campaigns, you write 10 handwritten notes, and you preview properties. And you do that every day. And if you do that every day, you'll start to get appointments. And when you get appointments, you'll start to have contracts. And when you have contracts, you'll have closings. But you'll never get the reward unless you start with this. And the thing that I know I mention this like every time, but I'm not trying to be hard on anybody but you understand you need to do this. Right? You need to do this. That means you don't take phone calls during that time. Try talking to Quincy between 9 and 11. Right? You know, you can't. Right? They have signs on their door. They don't answer their phone. They don't read their email. You understand? They don't make appointments. Right? They do that every day, 5 days a week. Right? And they don't stop until they contact the number of people they're supposed to contact. The problem with being in real estate is that you're independent contractors. Right? Do what you want. You want to do it your way. Right? You don't want to have a job. And that's why most people don't make any money. So, when you preview properties, see, the part of this, why did I go off on that? I had to remind myself, why did I go off on that? Because when you preview properties, you have to, this is where I was going, I want you to have high goals. Because if you have really low goals, for example, if you say, I only want to make $50,000 or I only want to make $70,000 a year, then you can spend 5 hours doing a CMA. Right? Do you understand? If somebody says, I want to sell my home, you could spend 5 hours getting the CMA ready. You could show property 100 times to people. You could take them out for 6 months. Right? Because you can reach that goal with those kind of habits. But if you have a goal to make $200,000 or $300,000 a year, you can't take 5 hours to do a CMA. Yes?
Well, so hopefully this next year I'm going to be first year real estate agent. What do you think is a reasonable, like, so 50,000 is too low. What do you think would be a reasonable number?
Well, what I do, because people don't usually know when they're new, and even when they're used, they don't really know what number to use, is that what my suggestion is you do the daily 10-4 and see what you get.
Yeah, no, but.
All right, how about this?
What's the goal? What's your goal? What's your goal?
Well, remember I said that if you can't come up with a goal in your mind to at least, like for example, I was losing weight, right? And I had sort of a goal, but I really wasn't sure. But I was doing, for a while at least, what I was supposed to do, and it started to produce results, right? Did you understand? So until you actually start doing this, you don't know how many results. If you twisted my arm, I would say as a new agent, you want to do at least 6 transactions your first year. At least. 1 every other month. You want to cap. Cap means that you reach 100%. Right? That ought to be your goal, to get 100% commissions. Right? Has everybody, you've all heard that explanation? That's what that takes about 6 transactions. Once you've done that, remember that E to P, once you've done that, now how about doing 8? How about 12? And then hang out with the people that are closing one a week. And they don't look stressed. Right? So if you can't materialize, is that the right word? Visualize a goal in your mind, what I've suggested is that for 90 days you do the daily 10-4. Right? Because I'll tell you something, when you start getting checks, you'll start getting goals. Right? Because you want to buy stuff. Right? Yeah. All right. So the reason that I'm talking about, why did I go off on that rant? Because when you're previewing property, I want you to practice doing a CMA. Because I want you to practice doing CMA so that you can do one in 30 minutes, not 3 hours. All right? Because you can't have 5 listing appointments a week if you're spending 3 hours doing a CMA. You won't be able to do it. You can't do 3 appointments a week. If you're doing 1 appointment a month, then you could take 5 hours. All right? Maybe even 1 a week. But if you do these things, if you were to do 10 a day, you would start to get busy. Right? So you need to practice doing CMAs until you can do them quickly. And what I would suggest, I've seen agents who get really into it, is that I want you to understand you don't really know what it's going to sell for. You're not going to find it out. The goal is not for you to produce the price that you tell them that they listed at, and it's the perfect price. That's not the goal. The goal is so you can intelligently discuss pricing strategies when you're on the appointment. But who picks the price? The buyer. And how about the lender? In some cases, right? Isn't that true? Right? The seller gets to pay. I used to say to sellers, well, there's several prices. We're talking about pricing strategies. I said there's the wholesale price. And the wholesale price is what an investor will pay. Right? By the way, this is why I say it to for sale by owners. Right? You understand who's interested in dealing with for sale by owners? All cash buyers that are looking for a bargain. They want wholesale. They want to flip it. Right? That's wholesale. They want to buy it for a price where they can turn around and resell it for and make a profit. By the way, they usually want to make 15 or 20%. They usually want to make a lot of profit. Right? And they're putting up a lot of cash. So there's the wholesale price. Then there's the retail price. The retail price is what a willing buyer is going to pay for the property being on the market for, a reasonable amount of time. And then the third kind of price is called the listing price. You understand? That's just a listing price, right? It's not a wholesale price. It's not a retail price. It's, okay, how about this? You didn't like that one. So I would say that there were 2 kinds of prices. There's what we call reality, which are what properties have actually sold for. And then there's what we call fantasy, which are what properties are listed for. Do you understand? The listing price is not a real price, right? It's what somebody says they want. It's a hope, right? So with for sale by owners, they'll find the all-cash buyer who wants to buy at wholesale. So you're going to want to practice doing CMAs. You're going to preview properties. You're going to pick a farm, right? We've talked about that. You're going to pick a farm area. You're going to learn the area. You're going to preview properties in the area. And you're going to practice doing CMAs in your farm so that when you get, by the way, what will happen is that somebody who has a house just like one of the ones you did a CMA on is going to call you and say, I'm thinking of selling my home, and you've already done a practice CMA on a property like it. Right? Because the other thing is people are going to say, well, that other one that's listed over there, what do you think of the price? And if you say, I don't know. It just went on the market, I guess we'll see. Right? You understand? You don't sound like the area specialist. So pricing principles and strategy, you need to know what sells, price and condition. And we have a bunch of these charts that are part of our listing presentation. Some of this comes from the eEdge Listing Consultation Guide, which you can find in your eEdge section. And there are people, sometimes there's a pyramid, but this is condition versus comps. And this is a powerful way to sellers the selling price of the right price and a great property condition. The only way, by the way, when we look at the Realtor Property Resource, it's going to ask you as an agent to make decisions about comparables based upon their condition, right? And this is really hard if you've never seen them, right? So you're trying to decide what that sale was like by reading the 3 lines in the MLS that the listing agent wrote, right? The listing agent says, no need to preview, right? Bring your fussy buyers, completely remodeled, right? Immaculate. Do you understand that? I've seen those, and I've walked outside and looked at the comments and walked back in, and they don't always look that way. So if you haven't seen them, you can't make the condition comparison.
So many people refinance the house the last 2 or 3 years because interest rate is so low. So appraiser usually very severe. They give you quite severe appraiser estimate your house value and how much you have equity level. So can we ignore, or I should still pay attention what appraisal did and what the MLS does under my land?
One of the issues that oftentimes comes up is when they dig out an appraisal to show you. Right? First of all, an appraisal is one person's opinion of the value. Second of all, refinancing versus purchase appraisals are oftentimes very different. One of the differences is that, I believe this is still true, that if you refinance, they have more options, they being the lender, in going after you financially. For example, if the property doesn't sell for enough at a foreclosure to pay off the loans and it's a refi, they can go after your assets. Whereas if it's a purchase, they cannot. That's why when you refi, they ask you about your assets. But they don't care so much when it's a purchase. So if you've got a lot of assets, you understand the value that the appraiser is saying is, what value does this house have for loan purposes? And if you're rich, they'll lend you more money. Right? People say, "Would you mean appraisals change depending upon?" Yes, appraisals change depending upon the financial condition of the borrower. Two of us go into the pawn shop. We have identical watches. We want to borrow money from the pawnbroker. Our watches are exactly the same. I've always been a deadbeat when I borrowed money from him. He always has to call me and hassle me and threaten me to get me to pay him back. You've paid on time every time. You understand he's going to quote us 2 different amounts for the same watch, right? Because he's not just looking at the watch, he's looking at me, right? And in refis in particular, they can go after other money, and so they're generally higher than purchase. And sometimes they're off by a lot. Right? Sometimes they're off by a lot. So you don't want to go on the appraisal. Appraisers are also supposed to look at what past sales. In this market, they're oftentimes lower, not higher. But the pending sales, I remember having 10 offers above listing price and an appraiser saying it didn't appraise. And I was showing them all of a stack of 10 buyers think you're wrong. All right? So we got another appraisal. Know what the seller can and cannot control. This is an old one. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, some of the things you can control during the selling process are the condition of your property, the availability of your home for showings, and your positioning on the market. In the end, value is determined solely by what a buyer is willing to pay in today's market based on comparing your home to others currently on the market for sale. I don't determine value, and neither do you. The market determines value. Doesn't that make sense? That's an important line. What I used to do to people is I would say, all right, if a buyer is thinking about buying a house, first of all, they have to want this area. Let's say Blossom Valley. If they don't want Blossom Valley, they're not going to buy your house because your house is in Blossom Valley. So the number of people that are buying drops to the number of people that want to buy in Blossom Valley. Now, the people that want to buy in Boston Valley have to buy your neighborhood. Sometimes when showing property on the way to the showing, they're looking around and they say, is it on this street? And I'd say yes, and they'd say, we don't want to see it. Right? Do you understand? Driving to the house, some buyers are going to say, we don't want to see it. They don't like the neighborhood. There's nothing we can do about that. All right? So now the number of people that are buying drops to people buying in Boston Valley, which drops that people want your neighborhood. Now they won't want now they're looking at your house. And what they're doing is they're usually sitting across the street in their car looking out of the window at the outside of the house. We have finally come to something you can do something about. Because if they don't like the way the house looks from the outside, they're not going to go inside the house. I've tried convincing buyers to go inside ugly looking homes. I used to say to them, houses are like people. It's what's inside that counts. I used to say that, right? And people would say, we don't want to see this house, right? Right? Do you understand? Because if it's ugly on the outside, it doesn't matter what it looks like on the inside. So what I would do is take people across the street and tell them to look at their house from the eyes of a buyer. All right? One of the other things that I would always do is take the sellers around to look at the other listings if they haven't seen them already. Right? Because they'll say, well, my house is nicer than that one. I said, why don't we go look at that one? Right? Why don't we go look at that one? And then they're going, oh, wow, this is kind of nice. But, now that we're in the house, so are they willing to make an investment in the outside condition of the property? I've had people replace the sod in front of the house, all of it. Put rows of, is it a good thing for you to know landscapers?
Yes.
Right? Do you think that could be part of your allied businesses that you might want to talk to? Right? When putting rows of flowers, right? Trimming the bushes, putting potted plants, painting that side. If they don't see the house, they can't buy the house. Right? If we can't show them the house, we can't sell them the house. We have to get them in the house. No matter what you think, people buy books because of the cover and they buy cereal because of the box. Right? Isn't that right? Right? So they have to go in. Right? Now, do you understand what does this have to do with pricing? Because if they say, well, I'm not willing to do any of that, we're now down to comparing your condition to other. You understand the prices? So now we have a fixer-upper that we're selling to flippers, right, that are wanting to buy at wholesale. So what pricing misconceptions, what you paid, what you need, what you want, what your neighbor says, what another agent says, the cost to rebuild today, none of those have anything to do with the current price. Right? It's what buyers are willing to pay, what appraisers are willing to appraise for, and what's the competition. Understanding the window of opportunity, it doesn't last long. Now these charts, there's lots of these. I've seen charts like this since I first started in real estate, which was 1985. And if you were to graph, I used to use it like a bell curve. If you were to graph showings when homes come on the market, it's really high for the first few weeks and then it starts to taper off. Well, why don't we start high and we can come down later? All right. So what that means is that during, and by the way, in our market, I would move this over because what that means is that we start high, so we've priced it above the market when everybody's looking at it. And then we lower the price as soon as nobody's looking at it anymore. Is that what they're saying? Right? And the way to get the best price is to have multiple offers. Right? There's lots of weird stuff going on with that right now, which, let me just say this. Lori, go ahead.
Well, right, so if it's priced reasonably, when you have those buyers looking at it, you'll get more offers, which will create sort of a bidding war, and
which will raise the price.
Drive the price up.
Right. By the way, this works both ways. Buyers will call up and say, how long has that one been on the market? And you say 30 days, and they say, we want to see it. We don't want to see it. Why? It's leftovers. Leftovers. Do you want leftovers? Do you want to buy the only handbag that nobody else would buy? The one left on the rack. Is that the one you want? No, nobody wants the leftovers. The other thing, I actually had a buyer saying, well, all those people that have seen it, they couldn't all be wrong, could they? Right? All the people that saw it and didn't buy it, they couldn't all be wrong. By the way, just to warn you, what's happening in our market right now is that there are some agents that are doing weird stuff, which is like putting homes on the market for half their value. Yes. They're putting homes on the market for half their value.
To increase the price?
Well, in order to get, to create a frenzy.
But that's pretty bad.
Yes.
Half the value?
Half the value.
Yeah, because
Yeah, half. I mean it. I mean half the value.
right. I saw the property in Morgan Hill. It's a nice neighborhood, nice house. It was listed for 200K.
Right.
It's beyond 200K. That house is like
Right.
400, 450 probably.
So what are they doing?
They're doing it to create. They're doing it like getting a whole bunch of sharks in the water, swarming around in a feeding frenzy. Right. So what they're thinking is they're thinking they'll get 100 offers and it's like an auction, right? And by the way, just so you understand this, the list price is not an offer to sell, right? Do you understand? It doesn't matter.
Sorry.
I feel like Italian food for some reason for lunch. I don't know. Yeah.
So Mike, for example, if there's multiple offers, I know sometimes they say you go your highest and best. Is that only for like REOs?
Well, first of all, we don't have very many REOs. And on multiple offers, what you need to do is to have a conversation. Mike is going to be doing classes over here on the purchase agreement, which he's doing at the other office yesterday and today. And the market, we talk about removing loan contingencies and removing appraisal contingencies. You have to have a good conversation with the buyers that they're taking risks in doing this. But the question I used to ask them is, how bad do you want this house? How bad do you want this house? And if they said, we want it really bad. I mean, really bad? Really, really bad. Right? Well, that means that we need to make the offer without a lot of contingencies. Right?
Yeah, I
Right.
was the second house with the bank asked is for REO
Right.
and they asked for no appraisal contingency, but my buyer wasn't comfortable with that. So they said, no, we can still go up to 15,000 besides the appraisal price. We lost the house.
Right.
So there's another appraisal contingency offer came in.
Right. Sometimes buyers have to be beaten with a 2x4 before they get religion. Right? Do you understand? They have to lose a house and then lose a house and then lose a house until they finally realize that that's not working. But if you're good and you can convince them, and this sometimes takes your confidence and some experience, that if you really want this house, you're going to need to make an offer that the listing agent and seller can accept. And if they have 10 offers and you've got a loan contingency and you're doing all the inspections and reports, which you can, you're not going to get the house. All right. Yes.
And if you don't get good at that, they'll fire you because you didn't get them a house.
That's right. Yeah, people, but what buyers want to do is they'll blame you if they don't get the house. Right? I've had buyers that have said, no, we want this, we want that, we want to, their uncle told them they always ought to offer 20%, you never know, maybe, just always lowball, right? And then they don't get a house, and then they're forced with the decision, either they've screwed up or Uncle Lou has been giving them bad advice, or it's your fault, right? And it's just like a football team that loses, they can't fire the team, they fire the coach. And they get a new coach. And of course, that doesn't necessarily change the team, right? You understand? But then people, they do this on listings too. Expired listings will tell you, I'm not lowering the price, not lowering the price, not lowering the price. All you do is tell me to lower the price. The listing will expire. They'll relist with somebody else and lower the price. And if they lowered the price with you, it would have sold, but just stubbornness and ego, they won't lower the price until they change agents.
So in this market, like to get the house for the buyers? What's the aggressive way to get?
You have to make full price or above offers without contingencies. But what is it that would be a good thing to have right now?
Cash.
Listings,
Listings.
right? I had a listing back in the day when we were in a market like this before, and I had over 20 offers. I'm sitting in my office. There was a line of people out the door, agents with their offers. People were faxing offers. It was, and I was piling them up on the table into different groups to show the seller, right, by price. Do you understand? This is, you want listings.
Right.
By the way, if those of you, one of a very successful agent and comedian at our other office, Leslie Lang, when she interviews buyers, the problem with quality is solved by quantity. Right? So she interviews buyers, and if she doesn't like them, she goes a little further than I would. If she doesn't think they're fun to work with, she won't work with them. Right? She'll work with 3 buyers at a time, and that's it. And basically, they have to interview her to see if she'll work with them. And she will explain what kind of market we're in and what it's going to take to buy a house. How do you feel like that? And if they say, well, she says, well, then go find another agent. I'm going to find another buyer. Right?
She works solely with buyers, or
No, she does both, but she does a lot of buyers. And you notice her pictures on the capping, right? That was a few months ago. She got her cap for hitting 100%. So the other thing is that you need to have cash buyers. That means you need to work for and find investors. Are there ways of finding investors? The answer is yes.
How can I find investors?
First of all, they already have investments.
That's right. So they.
Can you get it? Would your friendly title company give you a printout of all the non-owner occupied properties in San Jose? Well, yeah, it's a long list. How about just starting with Blossom Valley? I used to do this in my farm. Because the farm, when you talk to the listing, to the title company, they'll give you it's called a farm package, right? If you say I want a farm package, they'll just hand you this stack of stuff. One of the things that is a list of everybody that owns property but does not live there. These are oftentimes investors. You have their addresses, right? You can find them on the internet. There's People, Spodio, and other sites. Some of them cost money. But remember I showed you my program that searches everywhere to see if they're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, right? So there are ways of finding them. You can do seminars. One of the things that I can help you with is home buying, home selling, investor, and seminars.
You'll have their address if it's not on the
Right, you can send them a letter.
Right. Okay.
Right? Right. When we in talking about they've already invested in that area. They might like to buy another one. Right. There's other ways. There's a site called Bigger Pockets, which is all about investing in real estate, including how to find investors. All right. Question.
I have a question. If I go to like State Farm, they will insure the house. Do they give you information or they are not allowed?
What information?
Well, owner of the house.
Well, we don't need to go to the State Farm to find the owners of the house.
That is
What I used to do is home buying and home selling seminars. My biggest home selling seminar I held at Chicago Title at a time. This is on Thornwood near my farm. And I mailed out thousands of postcards telling people that I was doing a seminar. I had over 20 people show up to hear essentially a listing presentation, right? And 4 of them listed their homes, right? That was the best one I ever had. But the smallest one I had like 4 people. I did a for sale by owner seminar. The ad said, sell your home on your own without a real estate agent, free seminar, right? And people would show up, and I showed them every form that exists practically to sell a home, copies of every disclosure chart, every law, everything they had to do. And at the end of it, one woman said, wow, could you just list our home instead? And I said, yeah, and I listed her home, which sold. Right? Do you understand? There are things, by the way, I have I have all those slides and stuff, which I'm willing to share. Everybody here's in my coaching program anyhow. I'm willing to share that with you. But the idea is we want to get sellers. These charts, by the way, this pricing triangle works better when we're in a buyer's market. Price versus time on the market. We don't want it to be on the market for a long time. By the way, I remember I said that there are some buyers that would, when you say it's been on the 30 days on the market, they said we don't want to see it. I had investors that would say I only want to see homes that have been on the market more than 45 days. Right? Because they said these people are desperate. So what this shows is that if this is market value and we start high, we end up below market value. Starting high to come down later doesn't break even, it means we lose money. If you were a buyer and the house had been on the market for 6 months, what would you think? I mean, really, what would you think? There's something wrong with this house. Right? Price to reflect market movement. Looking at the pending sales. And you need to know if the market is rising, falling, and this is about declining markets, rising markets. In a rising market, sellers who feel time is on their side may price above the current and hope the market will catch up. Sellers who want to cash in on improving prices in a rising market are still well advised to price at the market to get a sale and move on with their lives. Things change. Do not be afraid to be brutally honest. By the way, there's a script coming up that I have to admit, the first time I taught this class for Keller Williams, I hadn't actually read the outline in advance because I taught similar classes, and I did my script, which then when I'm teaching the class, I find out they have pretty much the same script. I had heard it from a guy named Floyd Wickman. And so the idea is that this is not so important in a rising market, but you understand the market is going to change. Last year it was a buyer's market. Now it's a seller's market. Next year, who knows? So I would say to them, I'd get them to tell me what they thought the price was right, or what the price was, right? And then I'd say, I know what you guys are thinking of in terms of the price. And I would say to them, what do you think of my presentation before? Are you willing, do you think we can work together? I mean, I would close on a listing appointment. I would ask them, how do you think that we're getting along? How do you think about my presentation and marketing plan? And they'd say, oh, it's okay. And I say, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being terrible, we'll never work with you, and 10 being perfect, this is everything we wanted, we want to get started right away, where would you put me on that scale? And they would say, usually 7, sometimes 8, and I'd say, thanks. What does it take to get to 10? What would it take to make it to 10, right? And they would sometimes laugh, and then they'd say, well, how about the price? Could we go a little bit higher in the price? And how about the commission? Could we go a little bit lower in the commission? And I would say, well, if I agreed to both of those, are we ready to get started? And they'd say yes. And I'd say, great. I have a dilemma, and maybe if I could share it with you, maybe you could help me out. Because based upon what you just said, see, I kind of know what you want on the price, and based upon what you just said, I happen to doubt that we're going to get that price. But you see, that's not the dilemma. See, my dilemma is that I have a choice right now. One of my choices is I could just lie to you, right? I could just tell you, yeah, a nice home like yours, I'm sure we can get that or even more. And then you've already said you're going to list your home with me, and I get the listing and I go on. But then I'm going to have to let you down later and work on you to lower the price. Or I could level with you. I could tell you what I really think is best for you, but you see, the problem with leveling with you and telling you the truth is that your other agents may come in and lie to you, and you're going to list with them, and then they're going to let you down later. And so I don't really know what to do. Maybe you could just what do you want me to do? Do you want me to lie to you, or do you want me to level with you? I mean, really, what do you want? Right? Right? I would say this, right? And then I said, well, we want you to tell us the truth. Right? Now, also, have I called pretty much all the other agents liars? You have to understand that other agents are going to, if they are interviewing other agents, which is why we emphasize finding out if they're interviewing other agents, you have to understand that other agents are going to come in and say, why? This price? Your home is, we've sold homes not nearly as nice as yours for more than that. I think you're pricing your home too low. Oh, the other agents told you it was worth less. Well, they're just trying to make it easy on themselves. They're not trying to get you the best price. They just want to make a quick sale. Right, do you understand? Then they list with that agent because it sounds good, and then that agent in a week says, well, really, I think we're a little high in the market. Maybe we ought to talk about, right? Because they'd rather get a listing and work on a price reduction than not get the listing at all. If you don't talk about that, you understand? You should assume that they're going to meet with another agent who's going to lie to them about price. This is how a lot of agents get listings. They raise the price and they lower their commission.
Yeah, but can't you demonstrate that to them when you're doing your listing presentation?
You're assuming that the comparables are that straightforward. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Right? But I'm just saying, but do you understand, do you want me to tell you the truth or do you want me to tell you what you want to hear? Right? I have a longer version of that.
I need that.
Right? Yeah.
Overcoming an objection when you've got, well, I don't know if it's an objection, but it turns out that way. So I went to a listing presentation recently. I knew he was interviewing 3 agents. He chose me because I sold the house 3 doors down from him. He'd seen my son in that one for a year. And he's got my postcards, and I hadn't talked to him because it was an investor. It was a non-owner occupied. So I went pretty confident. I got there early. We connected great. The agent that was coming right after me was a half an hour late, so I got an extra half an hour. I was feeling really good. I left my listing presentation book with him and said I'll be back to pick it up on Sunday, so that I had a reason to go back. So when I went back to get it, he apologized and told me that he had chosen another agent, not the one after me. And I said, can you just tell me why? And he said, because he sold the house of mine before in Mountain View. And I already knew him and I felt like he could do the job. He said, you did well, but.
Right.
Okay, I had asked him up front who he was interviewing, and I didn't know that he'd had a previous relationship, but nevertheless, help me out with that one. How do you overcome that objection before it happened?
How do you overcome it? First of all, sellers will not always tell you the truth about how they're going to pick an agent. Right? And now one of my suggestions on my list of questions is, are you talking to anybody else? Who? Are you talking to? Why them? Right? And so, well, I've worked with them before. It's better the devil you know, right? Now, what I learned over the years was not to leave that room without getting them to sign the listing agreement. And one of the things we talk about in BOLD, which is another training program that I'm going through, are different kinds of behavioral styles that agents and or clients can have. And one of the most effective styles among real estate agents is a style where the people are very good with relationships and connecting to people, and they care about people, and all of that, which is all very good if you're in sales, and especially a service type sales. But that type of personality, that what they need to learn to become super agents is closing, right? And that means that what we suggest is that you close 5 times, right? I would say things, I wouldn't get up. I would say things like, look, we've spent a lot of time together, and I would have a big binder with tabs, and I don't know if you ever remember seeing one of those binders I had with all the tabs and all the forms and all the things. And and I'd say, look, I put in obviously a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I really like you guys. I think I can do a good job. I'd like to work with you, right? And what would it take to get you to agree to work with me tonight? What would it take? Just tell me, what would it take? And if they said, well, we have other people that we're talking to, when at a certain point, if you're not good at this argument, you want to be the last person. But then eventually I wanted to be the first person, because what I would say to them is, well, look, if you're working with me and you really believe I'm going to do a better job, because I would stress, I was talking about this yesterday, pick the listing agent based on the marketing plan, right? You pick the agent based upon what they're going to do, not what they say, not because they're friendly, not because they're nice, not because you know them, not because they're a relative, right? But because of the marketing plan. And so I would get them, first of all, to agree to that axiom, that the way in which they're going to get the best deal and the best time with the least inconvenience is to have their property exposed to the most possible qualified buyers. Do you agree? Yes, we do. All right, here's my marketing plan. I had everything possible, things that other agents didn't have, everything. Well, that looks great. So if you've already decided that you want my marketing plan, because usually I'm going to talk to other agents as a stall, if you've already decided, meeting with them is just going to waste their time. And if you hire me, it'll be my job to represent you with other agents, because that was part of my marketing plan. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We won't put we'll get started tonight, but I'm not going to put it in the MLS. And that guy that helped you buy, right? He's really good with buyers. I'm going to call him tonight and send him all the information about the listing. So, and we'll give him, 2 or 3 days? You think that'll be enough? So that all the buyers he has, he can go and talk to them about your property, and he can get a head start. He'll get a head start on all the other agents. Wouldn't that be great? Right? And you don't have to worry about this. I'll talk to them, because when you hire me, I'm now representing you. I've had people say really mean, really nasty words to me, right, when I would call them up. And I'd say, these are fun calls. Hey, because especially if I knew the guy, right, because they were farming, I'd say, hey, I hear you have a listing appointment. And then that's when I would start hearing the expletives, right, on this. And I'd tell them the address. I said, well, they've already listed with me, but as a courtesy, then you'd hear another F word, I'm letting you know that, I'm going to send you the information on the listing so you can get started now with all those buyers you said you have for the listing, right, And then you'd hear another, F word, and by that time a lot of them are hanging up, right? And then I'd smile and call the next one, right? So but you understand, you don't want, if you leave, if you're not the last one, if you're one of the first ones and you leave without them signing the piece of paper, your chances have gone down, because the people at the end have an advantage. First of all, they're going to show them your package, right? I know the idea of leaving it behind because it creates this obligation, that you get to come back and they're going to have to deal with you because they got some of your stuff and maybe they won't. But it also means they show it to their friends. Right, the other agents, and they look at your stuff, and then they raise the price, they lower the commission, right?
So is that a good idea or a bad idea to leave something with them?
It's generally a good idea. What's really a good idea is to get the listing when you're there.
Well, yeah. But
You see, what I've noticed is that when people say we want to think it over and we're talking to other people, the agent says, all right, okay, well, all right, fine. And they pack up their stuff and they leave, right? I would say, what would it take? Tell me. First, you understand the scale of 1 to 10. What would make it a 10? What will it take to get you? I've gone on listing appointments where the guy said right at the beginning, I want you to know, I'm not signing anything tonight, right? Not signing anything, right? And at the end of the night, they had signed a listing agreement. Right. So.
Well, and that's the thing. You're demonstrating to them that you know how to fight and you know how to win.
Oh yeah.
And that's what you want.
They generally would rather have a more aggressive than a less aggressive agent on their side. If you were suing somebody, do you want this calm, milquetoast lawyer that's always, doing his meditations and saying his mantras and, arranging flowers on his. Is that the lawyer you want, or do you want somebody, snapping and snarling, right? So I'm not going that far, but the problem is close 5 times. Ask him to sign the piece of paper 5 times before you give up. Because you should realize, you should expect that if you walk out, you're not going to get the listing. Right? Once I thought of that why not? Why not? Because the next guy, what I would tell people that if you're new, you want to be last. If you're not strong at closing, you want to be last. Right? Just like I would try to show the best house last because thinking they would buy it. Right? Do you understand? Rather than the best house first. There's different views of that. If you're not strong at closing, you want to be last because by that time they're ready to make a decision. Right? And it's not as hard to close. The problem is I'm not the worst one at this. Right? Do you understand? The problem is if one of the agents before you is a closer, you're going to get that call where they say, we've already listed it with somebody else. Right? I would block a couple of hours when I went to meet with them because I didn't want to leave. Right? I wanted this to be a long, painful process so that they did not want to do it again with another person. Right?
Just made them sign.
I would say, look, I'm here. I've done a lot of work. I would make sample flyers, right? I already had flyers, just listed postcards. I would say, look, I've already done everything. I'm ready to go.
Even though it's your first listing.
Sure, you should. Didn't I? What did I? Yeah.
I had a list of buyers
Yeah, a list of buyers.
that were fighting over the house 3 doors down.
Well, that doesn't hurt. But you understand the other guy might have been a better closer. And what happens is that real estate agents are like wallpaper. You've heard me say this. We have a tendency to look and sound alike. Right? You understand? Everybody says we're going to do that. I'm going to put your home in the MLS, and I'm going to do open houses, and there's going to be a farm. Right? Everybody sort of. But and so, given a bunch of agents that sound alike, he went with the one he knew. Right? The only way that you can break through that is to be a better closer. Most real estate agents are not good at closing.
Yeah, because if you have the same marketing plan as every other agent, then it boils
Right.
down to you being able to close.
Right. If you cannot close, you cannot sell.
You can't drink coffee.
That's right. No coffee. Coffee is only for closers.
There's that other technique you talked about, was about shortening the listing.
That's for buyers.
Oh, for
That was for buyer-broker agreements.
Oh, okay. So,
Right. Which is another class.
Sorry.
Right. But that's okay. No, that's fine. Do you understand that in bold, I used to tell people 3 times. Right? In the training that I normally do for new people, I say close 3 times. Right? In bold, which is our more on steroids program, it's 5 times. And if you think about kids who want something, right, they ask, can I have a cookie? And you say, no. And then they are dejected and they go away and don't ask again. Isn't that what happens? No, they ask again.
Right.
Right? And then you say,
No.
no. And then they go away and sulk, or do they ask again?
Yes.
They ask again. When do they stop asking?
When
When they get the cookie. Right? Isn't that when they stop asking?
Right.
Right? You don't want to leave. You want to get it there. And so I used to, Dorothy has seen, I think, where I would print out all the forms. I told you guys about this. Print out every form with merged all of their information, sample flyers. I mean, I wanted them to feel guilty with the amount of effort I put into it. And it doesn't take that long. Right? Do you understand? Because once you just merge all the forms, they all print out. This didn't take 5 hours to do. Right? But you don't want to leave without the listing. Huh? And in this market, I would take it at any price, and I would take it at any commission if I were a new agent. Right? I would just get the listing. Because if you get listings, you can get more listings. All right. There's a checklist, a 6 pricing strategy. Use this checklist to you work on a pricing of property, whether it's a previewed property for practice or one you plan to list. It will help you learn the 6 disciplines. Do you know what sells? Which means condition. Know what the sellers can't control. Understand the window of opportunity. Basically, we're going through those different charts and things and asking, how well do you know and can you explain those concepts? I used to include all of those. It was from a different company and it looked a little bit differently, but they were exactly the same charts. If you buy a CMA software program from somebody, they're going to have exactly the same charts. If you use the Realty Property Resource or the MLS to produce a market analysis, it's going to have exactly those charts, right? I'm just telling you, everybody has those same charts. I wouldn't talk about them. I would, unless it came up as a specific issue, and then I would refer to it. All right, what is a CMA? What I'm going to do, and I know I've probably been logged out by the MLS already. Let me just see. No, it didn't log me out. I can't believe it. All right, so what I would like to do is to go through a property to do a CMA. And I have one that I've done before. If somebody has one that they would like, as long not a weird one, right? Sometimes people suggest homes that were custom built, you know, in 3 parts over 20 years in a desert someplace. You know,
You just want an address
well, an address of a single family home,
that's listed or not?
not listed. It doesn't matter.
All right. Why don't I have one?
Do you have one?
You want an address?
All right. Is there somebody that's going to? We're going to all see who they are in a second.
Is that okay?
That's okay with me. It's all public information. What's the address?
2804 Augusta Court,
Is it in California?
Santa Clara.
Santa Clara.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I can do Santa Clara. All right. So let's say this is a for sale by owner and expired, and I don't know anything. I don't know anything about it. By the way, and I can't pull this up right now because of the type of way I'm logged in, but the Realtor Property Resource is where I would start. And my screen is all messed up. But what I'm going to do, it's thinking. How about this? I'll go back. Maybe it'll think less. Oh, come on. All right.
Mike,
Yes.
I went to there and they asked me sign in again. Can I use my? Because they asked me email and the password, which I don't think I did.
Is that the same thing as MLS?
Yeah, I went to MLS and the RPR asking different signing in.
All right. Well, it says I'm still. All right. For those of you who have never used the Realtor Property Resource, you should log in and get set up for the RPR. When you click on the Realtor Property Resource, and the login that I'm using right now is not one that's logged in. It wants a valid email and password. You need to come up with another email and password. Not another email, but this is another login. Not everybody in the MLS, not recently, if you read the news, like I get all the news about all the MLS stuff that's going on, the last few major MLSs have joined RPR in other parts of the country. So it has sign in. Notice it says here, awesome, now every realtor has access to RPR. If you click out and find out more, I've already seen these articles, the last major MLSs have joined. You click on create a new account. It's going to ask you really tough questions like your last name. That's not so hard. Your NRDS number, which is your which you're supposed to have tattooed someplace where people can see it.
I never used it, so I didn't.
Right. So there are 4 ways to find your NRDS number. One is you could click on this and look it up on the website. In order to find it on the website, you're going to need to know your DRE number and your name. right? And then it'll give you your NERDS number. And so you put in your last name and you put in your NERDS number and you hit submit and you're going to be logging into the NRDS. All right? I'm not going to do NRDS today. All right? If you get a Realtor magazine, it's on the label. If you still can't figure it out, if you have a Realtor membership card, it's on it. If you still can't figure it out, you can call the 800 number and tell people you can't figure out how to look it up on the website because you don't know your name or you don't know your DRE number. I don't know why you need to call them. So that's the easiest way to start this process. All right. So we're not going to do, I'm going to do a class on using RPR later. So I'm going to show how to do this old school. And I have to get the address.
So that's how it's done.
I'm going to use Realist. Right? And so I'm going to click on Realist. It wants me to log in again. All right. It has, just give me a second.
Somebody look away.
Oh, everybody's seen it like 5 times. So after I'm done, I'm going to change it because I know how you people are. All right. Oh, I didn't realize it wasn't typing. And password. All right. Bye. See you later. All right. So we're back here. Oh, please don't close.